Welcome to the Accounting Success Podcast. Ian Wellham is a chartered accountant helping other CPA firms maximize their profit potential and become the most relevant advisor to clients. To learn how you can add value, introduce new revenue streams, and move into high-value advisory services, simply go to www.haydenrock.com. On the podcast, Ian brings together successful accountants and industry thought leaders to share with you how they serve business owners and how you can too. And now, here's your host, Ian Wellham.
Hello, and welcome to the Accounting Success Podcast. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk to CPA marketing with Eric Majchrzaks of Beach Fleshman PC. Beach Fleshman is one of Arizona's locally owned CPA firms, but one of the largest, with offices in Tucson and Phoenix. Eric is the Chief Marketing Officer. He's responsible for the firm's overall marketing initiatives, including institutional firm branding, client satisfaction, firm growth initiatives, niche marketing, and digital marketing. Eric has been acknowledged as one of the accounting profession's pioneers in digital marketing and social media, and has been named as one of the top 100 most influential people in the accounting profession by the editors of Accounting Today magazine. Most impressively, he has won the prestigious Marketer of the Year award last year, presented by Inside Public Accounting. Eric's also a blogger, a speaker, a faculty member, and a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, from what I can tell. He's obviously been a very busy lad, so let me jump right in and say welcome, Eric. Thank you for putting aside a few minutes to visit with us today.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks for that introduction. It sounds good on paper, you know. People tease me. They say, "Wow, you're an accounting firm marketer," and I always say back to them, it's kind of like being big in Germany, you know. You're a well-known accounting firm marketer. It's such a niche kind of thing, and so I've grown to appreciate it, though, because I really do think that the accounting profession has a lot of opportunity to do some innovative things and some cool things. And I'm glad to be part of this conversation, so thank you.
Well, I mean, let's say, congratulations. Marketer of the Year, that's still a big honor. And to me, marketing is such a fascinating subject. I've got so many things I want to ask you, but before we get into that nitty-gritty, I'm curious to know, how did you end up in professional services marketing, specifically in the CPA community? Out of all the other options out there, what drew you to the CPA industry?
You know, like most marketers, it ends up being quite by accident, ironically. I mean, most marketers, if you go to college or you go to university and you get trained in marketing, you don't come out saying, "Woo, I want to work for an accounting firm." So usually you end up kind of backing into a firm quite by accident. And I think that used to be the case. I think, though, we've been making a name for ourselves, and I do think that there are more professionals actually wanting to be a professional services marketer. But my specific journey had to related to, I worked at a large bank, regional bank, and this was back in the 90s. And we got to work with a lot of different accounting firms. That's kind of how I got interested in accounting for marketing.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you're from Buffalo, New York, right? Or you went to school in Buffalo. So how did you end up in Tucson, Arizona at Beach Fleshman?
I was born and bred in Buffalo, and my wife the same, and we lived there for many years. We did some traveling in the Northeast, and we lived in Connecticut, and we lived in Virginia. Then we actually went back to Buffalo when we had kids. But I think bottom line is we were looking for a lifestyle change. We wanted different scenery, the snow. We had been through a few big storms, and we just literally wanted a reset. And, you know, if you were to tell me, you know, what's the polar opposite of Buffalo, it would be Tucson, Arizona, literally.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why we're out here, just for a change, and the opportunity for another opportunity at a firm, and ownership opportunity for me specifically at the firm I'm at now.
That's great. So when I think about the accounting profession today versus the way it was when I first started as a chartered accountant, I see the profession changing quite dramatically and equally quickly, actually, especially for this industry, which is slow to move. Is the marketing side changing as well in terms of what works and the message that you convey to business owners?
I think it is, and it's the change has been obviously through technology, and I think a lot of firms can no longer really control the message out there. It's no longer one-way communication. It's now collaboration. It's two-way dialogue, and of course the internet has brought that on. So what that means for clients is too that they have a greater expectation for immediacy, for answers, and so we have to take that into account when we develop a marketing strategy for the firm. We want to make sure that we have a collaborative approach, that we can respond quickly, and that we can provide value, because the comparison shopping is so easy to do online, and we want to be prepared to be able to compete in that space.
Yeah, that sounds. I understand. What do you mean by a collaborative approach?
Well, for us, collaboration is actually part of our firm purpose. And a few years ago, we set out on a strategic initiative to define what our core purpose was. And we did that. It was mostly an internal exercise that we did, and our purpose is about the power that we believe passionately in the power of collaboration and what it can accomplish. And so we really try to live with purpose first and lead with our purpose, like a lot of the good companies and brands do, and in hopes that we can attract the types of clients that believe in those same values. So a lot of the marketing that we do also reflects that. In other words, we don't go out into the marketplace just on our own. Many times we're teaming up with an organization, a trade organization, maybe another company, and we do things together.
I see. Now, Eric, it seems to me that, well, if not all, it seems like all CPA firms sound alike. They say the same things, and therefore they say nothing really interesting in their marketing messages. Is that one of the biggest mistakes you see CPA firms making when they're trying to market themselves?
It is, because they're leading with what they do instead of why they do it. And I think if you lead from your purpose, it answers the question why. And because all of the accounting firms offer the core services, assurance and accounting and tax. And we all do that. And to the client, we all look the same. It's kind of a commodity type thing. So I think if you lead with your purpose, again, you're giving people a glimpse into what it might be like to work with you, because then they're getting a sense of why you're doing what you're doing. And I think it ends up being like a filter and almost a magnet to attract the types of clients that you want when you think about it a little bit differently. And in our case, we're actually going through a branding process now to incorporate that value of collaboration into everything we do. And so I think next year, probably in 2017, we'll be rolling out a brand new platform that has to do with collaboration.
So perhaps you could share another big mistake that you see CPA firms, something that really kind of makes you concerned or makes you cringe even.
Well, I think that where we get most frustrated are the firms that go out and lead by price. And of course, compliance services tend to be commoditized and tend to be bought on price only. So one of the things that we're doing to be different is we don't necessarily go to market leading with compliance services. We go to market with high value offers, strategic consulting, those types of things to get into the door first. And then when you build the relationship and you hit that project out of the park, then what we try to do is cross-sell the compliance work and tuck that work in. And that way it mitigates some of the fee pressure that firms typically get if they lead with compliance. So we're moving away from that.
Here at Hayden Rock, one of the things that we find when we speak to CPAs, while they talk about wanting to do that, they just don't have the knowledge of how to do it. Do you come across that problem as well?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of lip service out there, and you really do have to have. It's almost a cultural shift because I think for years firms depended on compliance to organically grow their firm, and I don't think it's no longer the case that you can depend on organic growth or compliance-based growth to differentiate your firm or to grow your firm. And so we realized this a few years ago because there was a great study done by the AICPA called the CPA Horizons 2025 study, which you may be familiar with, Ian.
Yes.
But it really explained a lot of that, how firms need to really be more relevant in the future.
Yes, that report is something that we put on CPA firms' desks every time we talk to them if they're not familiar. And indeed, I wonder about their understanding of marketing per se. They're so into the numbers, but yet they seem to be somewhat blasé about how they go about and what they spend on advertising, marketing, and sales. It's sort of a whatever comes in, comes in. Well, why do you think that's the case?
I think it's hard for firms because of their business model to focus on innovation and because we're not incentivized, our industry is not incentivized to innovate because of our business model, and that is many firms, tracking time by 6-minute increments and billing by the hour, and we all know innovation is not efficient. And so if your culture is that of efficiency, which can be good, okay, in some cases, it shouldn't be the only driver though. And so I think that we have to incentivize our people and our leaders to innovate and to test and to be willing to fail. And so we try to build that kind of culture here. And I think that's the key to going in the right direction is to embrace that mindset.
No, you make a very valid point that if you value bill and you're efficient, you make more profit. If you hourly bill and you're efficient, you make less profit.
Correct. Right. Well, one of the things we've been looking at is our pricing model, actually. And we're moving away, I would say over the past year and a half, we've been moving away from that hourly billing model to adopting value pricing approaches. We're not quite there yet, and I know that's a journey for a lot of firms. A lot of the new generation firms are using that. We're a large firm. We're a top 150 firm in the country. So what we're doing now is we're using advanced pricing our work in advance. We're using options in our pricing to give clients, again, it's that collaborative message coming through. We're giving them options on how they want to work with us. And I think that's been really helpful with getting the right types of clients and actually increasing our revenue.
Do you think that one of the issues which CPA firms have is that they think of themselves as providing advice and services rather than looking at themselves as a business which is in business to make money and to increase equity value?
I think it's that, and also I think that we need to not sell services but to sell outcomes. And I also think that's a cultural shift. So we really look at outcome-based efforts. And so when we approach a client and we're looking at pricing that client, we're not pricing a service. We're pricing the client based on the outcomes that they're desiring. And so that's a little bit of a shift in our industry. It's quite a huge shift actually, but it does open up so many more doors if you look at it that way, and it's a great differentiator. If you're talking about results and outcomes as opposed to selling time, I just think that there's so much more room for us to do great things in this industry. And I think it's a huge trend, of course, Ron Baker being the thought leader in the area, and of course people like Michelle Golden, who actually can come into firms and help firms adopt this model, which we did with Michelle as well. We brought her in, and she helped us get this model off the ground.
We actually had Ron Baker on one of our podcasts, and his thoughts and the way that we work with CPA firms are completely in line. And it's really interesting that you mentioned culture earlier. I think, and I can poke fun a little bit as accountants because I am one, that we're not great at selling things. So there's some people in a firm who just aren't going to be able to do that role. And so culturally you need to find out who the guys are who can do that, and then how to capture the new business using the right people and also the right process. Is that something you found inside the firm as well? There are some that it's not for everybody.
It's not. I think the word selling or business development scares a lot of people because most accountants I know don't go into the profession to become good salesmen. They come in because they enjoy numbers and they enjoy problem solving. And I think that's the focus is when I do internal business development training, we really talk about problem solving. And what I say is, you're already doing it. You just don't know it. You're helping clients every day with the issues that are impacting their organization. You're giving them advice. You're helping them get to the next level. You're walking them through a process. And it really, on the sales side, it's doing the exact same thing, only with somebody that's a non-client. And you're helping them go through a specific journey to find an answer to a particular problem, or maybe you're helping them identify an issue. And so I try to change the language we use internally, and I think that's seemed to help a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely a challenge. Thinking a little bit more back to the marketing, the pure marketing, between things like traditional advertising, white papers, surveys, the internet, mobile apps, and all that new stuff coming out, there are sort of so many shiny new objects out there. How do you work out which ones are the right ones to use, or which ones are going to work?
Well, I think a lot of it, and it's going to depend on from firm to firm. You're right. The technology is constantly changing, the features, the platforms. We can't be into everything at the same time at once. Bottom line is, if our constituents are in a space, then we want to be in that space. And constituents could be, clients in a particular industry. It could be referral sources. It could be, a number of different constituents, attorneys, bankers. And if they are playing in that space, then we want to be in that space because it's relevant. So that's number one. Number two is I think we base our approach on our firm's vision and our values, and we kind of hold that up as a template and say, does this initiative align with that? And if it doesn't, then it's a good indicator that maybe we shouldn't be adopting that approach or that particular platform.
And which media would you say was your favorite, or which ones are working best for you?
I see it as integrated. I always have. It's something that I believe in, so I don't necessarily market to a platform, but I use a platform as part of a greater integrated campaign. But anything, Google has just been probably our biggest driver of marketing originated results. And of course, your activities and your relevance in the social media space helps you with Google. And so we do try to replicate our brand promise, the same brand promise that we give face-to-face or in person. We're trying to replicate that online. We don't want any gap between the two experiences. And so if we can do that, then really Google will reward us, because then we're offering content, we're offering solutions, we have diagnostic tools, we have white papers, we have surveys, things like that are helpful. It's the same stuff we're doing face-to-face with our clients, really.
Yeah, I mean, are you using Google AdWords? Is that what you mean by using Google, or is it more SEO?
It's both. It's SEO. It's all the organic. The organic benefits of using Google and being found in searches, and then also we do the pay-per-click ads, we do display ads, we do retargeting, we do behavioral targeting, and then in addition to all of that, we're also doing a lot of the traditional things that firms feel comfortable doing and still need to do, which is a lot of the face-to-face, being in a room, being present, shaking hands, that kind of thing. And the two complement each other.
Mm. And without disclosing, your growth or your actual targets, how close are you to hitting the end game, which is, I guess, more clients, more revenue, more equity for the firm? Are you finding that those targets are attainable? Not? Give me a kind of like a broad flavor of how that's going.
We look at the industry as a whole, and we look at the top 100 firms, and we'll probably be in the 100 firms probably within the next 5 years. We look at their growth rate. We look at the top 200 firms' growth rates, and we compare with ours, so we kind of have an idea. And the average growth rate of the top 100 firms last year was 9-point-something%, and that's with M&A activity. That's a pretty healthy number when you think about that. So we have to be able to perform at that level at a minimum or greater on an annual basis in order to stay competitive. So we look at that and we develop a plan based on, number one, our goals and our strategic goals, but number two, we want to make sure that we're performing on par or greater than what our competitors are doing. And this year we're definitely on track to do that.
Was that based on gross revenues or equity build?
Gross revenue.
Okay, because as an accountant, I immediately get excited about, well, what's really the number behind the number, if you see what I mean. But we won't go down that rabbit hole just now. What about social media? How do you find social media working for the CPA firm?
Oh, it's been great. Again, I talked about when you're dealing with a client or a prospect face-to-face, you're accomplishing certain things. Number one, credibility. Well, you can do that with social media. Number two, awareness, brand awareness, personal awareness. You can accomplish that with social media. You can answer questions face-to-face. You can answer questions on social media. There's really nothing you can't do in the social space that you can't do in person. So again, I think the firms have to look at social media as you need to recreate your abilities face-to-face in the online space. And that's done through publishing, it's done through monitoring conversations, it's done through networking online, it's done through, you can do it through advertising, and sharing the content of other organizations as well. So that's the way we look at it. We look at it holistically, and you can generate hundreds of thousands of dollars using social media on an annual basis, simply by focusing on it and having a deliberate approach.
Do you get beyond the what I describe as the vague metrics of likes or views or shares with respect to social media success?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's qualitative and there's quantitative. I think you mentioned the quantitative, but you really have to look at it as it's hard to put a metric on a relationship, isn't it? But I really think that what you have to do in the social space is you really have to think about the relationship building aspect of it instead of the clicks and the likes and things like that. So I don't even care if it's one organization at a time, one decision maker at a time. I think that's worth it. And so those are the kinds of things that I look at. How many doors did we open? How many questions did we answer? Those kinds of things are important.
From a dividing your marketing time or resources, how much is aimed at current clients versus potential new clients? What are the sort of proportions there?
It needs to be more with current clients. I think a lot of marketing, if the firm's large enough to have a marketing department, the marketing department is typically focused on new client acquisition, but that's an expensive endeavor. And so I think if you're focused on your existing client base, it's an easier way, a more efficient way to expand revenue is to be more relevant than your existing clients. in that case, you're not competing. There's not a high level of or a barrier to get over to convince somebody to come on board with you. You're already there. And so in terms of a time split, boy, that's really good. I really do think, though, you need to spend at least as much time on your existing client base as you do with new client acquisition. There's got to be some parity there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how strongly do you believe that by doing that, spending time with your existing clients, that it actually drives new clients through perhaps a targeted or a systemized referral process?
It's our number one source of new business in the firm is recommendations or referrals by existing clients, and we measure it. And in terms of marketing originated opportunity or leads or clients, that ends up being, somewhere between, it depends on the firm, but somewhere between 25 and 35, maybe as high as 40% could be the result of new client acquisition, but the remainder of new revenue is coming from existing clients, either through cross-selling or through referrals. So we have to be able to pay our clients attention and really focus on those referrals because it's our number one driver of.
No, it's very interesting that you are so focused like that. Let me ask you, in a slightly different direction, what would you say your biggest marketing challenge is right now?
It always is getting involvement. It's a real big challenge, like any firm. We have to incentivize our folks to get involved. So we do. Like, for example, we have a bonus structure here, and a lot of times in our management, if you're a manager or above, you might have goals in there that are, of course, new business related, but we have content goals in there too. So our folks are incentivized to produce content, and content marketing is really in terms of our inbound marketing leads, our digital, it's our number one driver of leads is done through content marketing and inbound marketing, and we're incentivizing people to develop that content. So that's always been a struggle for firms, is to get people involved because they have so many hours that they're in a client load that's incredible, and they have to be able to get through that in order to focus on some marketing activities.
And how or who converts that content into copy for you then?
Well, we do it in a number of ways. Some folks are better writers than others, so they'll either write it internally. We have a designer on staff who can package those content pieces up. We have a web developer on staff who can then put that content out on the web or on the blog. And we also use the services of writers, actually a network of writers, where we might even have those writers interview those professionals internally. And those pieces are written by the design or by the writer in the voice of the professional.
That's great. So while you started to talk a little bit about the firm, let's focus on the firm for a little bit. Let's tell us a little bit more about Beach Fleischman. How many partners does the firm have, Eric?
We have 24 partners, including three partners or shareholders that are in our subsidiary company called Pinnacle Plan Design. So 24 all in, and we have about 150 employees altogether.
Wow. And I believe that you have, I'm going to say, 9 or 10 niches that you specialize in. Do you want to share a couple of those with us?
Sure. Our firm's about 25 years old, and I want to say 8 or 10 years ago, the firm, this is before I got here, developed industry practices because they realized it was a way to differentiate. So we have, healthcare being our largest practice, and then construction and real estate being number 2 and 3. Those are our monster practices here, and it's what grew the firm over these past 25 years. And then we have some real promising practices that are growing in hospitality, and in the high-tech arena. And then we also have, manufacturing and not-for-profit and a financial and professional services practice as well. So our internal teams focus on those areas.
And do you create niche-specific marketing for them?
We do. Every one of those industry segments has a standalone marketing plan. And those standalone marketing plans roll up into a master firm, like an institutional plan, which is then tied to a firm strategic plan, growth plan. So that's the one thing I want to say is if you're an accounting firm or an accounting practice and you have a marketing plan, that marketing plan just can't exist in a vacuum. It has to be informed by a greater strategic plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if there was one thing you said that you might say the firm does particularly well, what would that be?
It's our why. I think we're really good at collaborating with clients, and what I mean by that is that we get them involved in the community. We collaborate with clients through our technology. We make it easy to work with us, and then also we give our clients the ability to be successful. And that combination really defines what collaboration is for us, and it's what's made us, it's what differentiates us, is because we go deep with it, and we lead with our purpose.
Yes. Do you think that clients are starting to see you or see you as a profit generator rather than a cost?
Oh yeah, and that's been largely due to the launch of our strategic operations and advisory resources practice. It's basically a consulting practice, a management consulting practice that focuses on different operational areas of a company. Because we realize we can't just be advisors in the accounting space. Like, that's not enough. We have to be able to be relevant in other areas of operations, like human resources, internal accounting, or CFO. We have outsourced CFO. We do strategic planning, succession planning. And down the road, we'll be launching an IT practice as well. So clients really want an integrated problem-solving firm that can really offer a wider range of solutions than just accounting.
Yeah, I'd like to get to the SOAR, the SOAR, in a minute, but I'd like to ask you first instead, what is the one area that you wish your firm did better?
I really do wish, we're just not there yet. I want us to really compete in that IT space, because I just think there's so much opportunity there. I want us to be able to do that. We're so young as a firm in general. 25 years, it's not that old of a firm when you compare ourselves to other firms that have been around for 50, 75 years. But I really think we're newer in that we've been doing consulting in those 25 years, but now we have a real defined, deliberate effort to be advisors and consultants. And I want us to get better at that, because I truly believe that that's going to really drive profitability. It's going to drive our growth. It's going to drive our relevance in the profession and to our clients in the future.
Okay. So let me get back to the point you were raising just before. You do have a very interesting service called SOAR, SOAR. Can we talk about that in a little more detail?
Sure.
And also for the listeners, please repeat what SOAR stands for.
It stands for Strategic Operations and Advisory Resources. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's soar like an eagle, because again, it actually does tie back to our purpose of collaboration, and that we believe in collaboration and what it can accomplish. So if we truly believe in that, we have to be able to help clients accomplish things in other areas of their business that are just as important as accounting.
I see. And how does that service work?
It works that we'd like to go to market first with SOAR, and we'd like to go at the highest level. So that could be strategic planning. Because if you get in the door with strategic planning, you're starting at that highest level where you're looking at a company's mission and their purpose, and then you're looking at their core operational areas. And it really has been a good feeder for us to sell or cross-sell other work, traditional services, after we get in with the consulting. So that's been pretty much how we go to market with that. We've been emphasizing SOAR going to market. And a lot of it is being done through our statewide survey of CFOs, which is really a 360-degree survey of the issues impacting the operations of a company. So you can see the thought leadership piece that talks about operational areas of a company, and then we have a solution here with our SOAR product that can help them then, take their company or their operations to the next level.
The things that you're talking about here are very close to my heart, and I'm the partners here at Hayden Rock, because we believe that dealing with business owners on a much deeper level than the typical CPA firm is really the key that unlocks the door to the future. How do you feel the relative relevance of traditional compliance services with these new and more value-added services?
Well, I think they have to work. They have to work together. But I think you're right. The high-value solutions that we have are related to this practice, our SOAR practice, because we're truly moving the needle at a company. We're helping them get into new markets. We're helping them restructure. We're helping whatever their high-level goals are. We're helping them accomplish that, and I think they really value that. Like on our HR side, HR consulting practice, which is part of SOAR. We can do talent acquisition. We can do total rewards and training and organizational development, and then the compliance aspect of HR and employee separation. So really, it runs the full gamut, or the entire life cycle of an employee. We have a solution or something that addresses that life cycle. And we're trying to really look at our offerings in that manner, look at the full life cycle of a particular problem or a company, and we want to be relevant to that company in all those areas.
I also noticed that you're a member of the Leading Edge Alliance. So how are the SOAR services different from the LEA services?
Well, the Leading Edge Alliance it's our network affiliation. So there are a lot of like-sized, like-minded firms around the country, and I think Leading Edge has over 100 members in the U.S., more internationally too, and they're market specific. And so basically, it's peer education. We could tap into these firms if we need an area of expertise that we don't have, or if we need boots on the ground in a different geography, we can tap into the Leading Edge Alliance to help us with that. So if it's something we can't do that's outside of that SOAR practice, chances are we're talking to a Leading Edge Alliance firm in another market, and we're integrating them into our client service team here when we're doing an engagement.
So from what you're saying, do you believe that advisory services are the future for CPA firms?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's always going to be the need for an assurance of data or numbers, whatever form that comes in. But what's happening is a lot of that now is becoming automated. And you can think about how platforms like TurboTax really disrupted the tax service market for a lot of firms. And the same is going to be happening with auditing, with continuous audits and real-time audits. So we have to look ahead, and we have to say, look at a lot of the compliance stuff in the future, 5 to 10 years from now, on some level is going to become automated. We can still be relevant doing that. It's just that we're going to have to focus our people on other areas beyond compliance to be relevant, and that is the advisory services.
Yes. So is there anything perhaps that we've spoken about or perhaps we haven't spoken about that you'd like to share with us?
Competition maybe. I think firms too are wrestling with, no longer are we're becoming so diverse with our offerings that we're no longer just competing with CPA firms. There are so many boutique consulting shops, IT, HR, you name it, management consulting practices that all of a sudden we're in a different space, and sometimes we're finding ourselves competing with clients. And so that's an interesting topic, isn't it? All of a sudden, you're an accounting firm that was providing traditional services, accounting, tax, and audit, but then you're getting into these other areas, and all of a sudden you find yourself competing with your own clients. It can be kind of tricky. So I think that's an interesting topic for the industry to ponder.
And have you come across that particular problem so far?
Here and there, hasn't shown itself too much yet, but that's just because we're emerging into this new space of ours, and our SOAR practice is really only a year and a half old.
Right.
So we're just getting this thing off the ground, really. But it's different. It's just a different competition, a different approach.
Yeah, I think. Can you think of an example where you might be competing with a client? I think this is an interesting area.
Well, I can just give you some examples in general. If a firm decides to get into the IT space, there are a lot of accounting firms that are dealing with either web development companies, or they're dealing with an IT consulting practice as a client. And then all of a sudden, they're offering the same services. Same with, any professional service. Maybe it's HR or management consultants. We have some management consultants as clients. Now, some of it is size and scale. We may not be competing and targeting the same types of clients. So, but you can see there could be a conflict. So firms have to be prepared and expect that when they grow a practice, like an advisory practice, this could be a real issue for them.
I understand. So as we kind of wind down here, Eric, if you had a magic wand, what would you change? That's maybe, or what would it be? What would your wish be? What would it be?
For the profession?
Yes, or for your firm, or.
I think for the profession, it would be a total adoption of a new model that moves away from the mindset of selling time to selling outcomes and selling results. I really think that that's the healthiest thing for the profession moving forward. And for our firm, I think it's just continued success for our clients and for our people that work for us, and really being able to live out what our purpose is, which is believing passionately in that power of collaboration. If you go to work and in the workplace kind of matches your personal philosophy, sometimes it doesn't feel like work as much, because you're living out your personal purpose, I guess, and that aligns with your company's purpose. It's more of, it gels a little bit easier, and so we try to do that. That's another good reason, actually, to lead with your purpose, is that it's a great recruiting tool.
Yeah. Yes. Well, as you could probably tell, I could talk about all this forever.
Me too.
Yeah, but I'm afraid that, unlike we're not charging for time, but our time's up nevertheless, Eric. And this was really great. I'd really like to thank Eric Majchrzaks for being with us today. Eric's from Beach Fleshman, and also Eric for being so generous with your time. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it. I enjoy these topics. It's fun, and I'm glad you guys are out there bringing these issues to light. So thank you.
Thank you. If people want to learn more about your firm, Eric, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, they can find us on most social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. the big ones that, of course, firms are using. Or you can just go to our website, which is beachfleischman.com, and it's BeachFleischman.com. I know that's a mouthful. You could just Google it too, Beach Fleischman, and you'll find us on there.
That's great, thank you. So there you have it. This is Ian Wellham saying goodbye for now. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Accounting Success Podcast.